Hey guys, welcome or welcome back. Tisha here, back for another chapter reading of Shattered Dreams. Happy Thursday. This is book 3, No More Turns. And we are on chapter 32. I cried until my head was splitting. Repeatedly, I asked God, what did I ever do to deserve all this? Things were not going well within the Church of the Firstborn. The craziness among Verlin's siblings spread, and Ervil actually had Joel, our prophet, murdered. Ervil, once the patriarch of the church, was removed from the position after considerable misconduct and was exacting vengeance on the other church members. Verlin was still president of the church, so Ervil was after him too. Verlin thought it would be a good time to colonize in some out-of-the-way place like Nicaragua. So naturally, he was planning on sending me down to this unknown country to help start the process, because she's the only one who apparently can do these things, while the other wives don't have to. I was pregnant with my 13th child, and my health was shot. He knows all of this, and he's still sending her away. I was told I could expect more clots in my legs and would probably die if I had another natural birth. On the other hand, if I had a cesarean section, I knew I wouldn't be able to resist letting them tie my tubes while they were in there. Verlin believed there were still spirits waiting in heaven for me to be their mortal mother. Why is it for her? Why can't it be somebody else? And why is he talking about her womb and what goes on in it? He assured me that tying my tubes would be a slap in God's face, strictly against his laws, and a recipe for going straight to hell. I'm going to leave that alone. I don't agree with it. That's my stance on that. Death, apparently being my only righteous option, was looking pretty sweet to me right now. No more heartache or pain or other wives to cope with. I'd have peace, and finally be free. Verlin was in San Diego buying fruit and nut trees to be shipped to Nicaragua. His scheme was to plant orchards that would produce large enough crops to supply the needs of the new colony on a year-round basis. Moving the church into Central America. Ooh, I'm doing all types of stuff. I'm kicking stuff. I'm moving stuff. Yeah. Moving the church into Central America would be a slow process, but going out first and starting a business that could sustain future colonizers would lay the foundation. As a general concept, it was solid enough, but Verlin was never any good at managing such enterprises. Churches and marriages, perhaps, but not businesses. Verlin's other wives took turns visiting him in San Diego while he was out there searching for trees at the right price. Each time a wife went, I sent a long letter to Verlin explaining my medical predicament, and apologizing for wanting the operation to tie my tubes when I had my baby. I felt it was a life-saving necessity. Verlin felt it was a sin, and I would have been tying them without him, because this point, her body can't take anymore. But then again, his answer is to just not sleep with her. He knew I had a deadline. The cesarean had to be performed on or before Saturday, January 20th, because the only surgeon would be gone after that. All my letters were pleas for him to come to be with me and bring the $100 I needed to help cover the cost of the operation at the Baptist clinic. The $100? How many hundreds are we talking? On Monday, Lily returned from San Diego with a short note from Verlin. Irene, I'm sorry I can't come. These trees are of great importance. She's getting cut open. She's having another one of your babies. And some trees matter more than you making sure that your wife is okay. Irene, what chapter are you leaving, girl? I need to do something on a large scale for the future of the Saints. I promise I'll be home Friday for sure. We'll decide then whether or not to go through with the C-section. He needs to be there either way. I thought she was about to get the surgery. That's why I said what I said. But he needs to be there either way. Like, this shouldn't even be a question. Some of my shirts aren't fitting me right. Ugh, goodness, sorry. Donna helped me scrub walls, wash windows, and clean the yard. I spent a day mending clothes and scrubbing out the dirty ones on the washboard. We also washed sheets, blankets, and rugs. I wanted everything clean and in order so life wouldn't be so rough on Donna while I was in the hospital for a week. It was a huge responsibility for her to have to manage her 10 brothers and sisters all by herself. She didn't even have Andre's help now that he'd gone to work to help support the family. I helped her wash buckets of wheat to be used for cereal and bread to keep the wheat away from the incessant flies. We dried it in pillowcases pinned to the clotheslines. Donna's sweat and willing support urged me on. At 17, she was not only my daughter, but a dear friend and an anchor to her overwrought mother. I turned to her often for comfort and understanding. Doesn't this sound a lot like what has happened with Christine and her kids? Because we know that Christine has turned to Aspen and Mykelti a lot. And then later, after they left, it was Isabel. So it goes to show you that this seems to happen a lot in their faith, that they turn to their kids for help. And because they're not really around other people enough to have friends in them. One Friday afternoon, Dr. Cano sent a message reminding me he was going on vacation and wouldn't be back for 2 weeks. I could either come sometime this weekend and have him do the cesarean, or I could find someone else to deliver the baby naturally in his absence. I was nauseous with uncertainty about what to do. All my life, I've been taught obedience. My husband was to rule my decisions. I was to accept and follow whatever choices he felt best for me. I struggled with God's unbending rules. How could Verlin know what was best for me? How could he assess my situation without even talking to the doctor or without even being around her? He's not around her enough to see her struggles. He's just going off of what he thinks should happen. How could he assess it without talking to a doctor? How could he even understand my feelings as a woman? If tying my tubes gave me my only chance to live and raise my own children, who had that right to deny me? I desperately needed his support and approval, not only to have the cesarean, but to have my tubes tied at the same time. Why couldn't he just give me permission? Would he even keep his promise to come home to me that night? For years, I lived on Verlin's broken promises. I didn't think he went around promising to do things and then simply changed his mind about doing them. I believed he basically wanted to fulfill his promises, but his responsibilities as a husband and a father to so many just made it impossible. He already knew that when he made the promise. The moment that Verlin opened up his mouth to make the promise, he already knew that he wasn't going to do it. So why even make the promise? Okay, lots of times he promised me things just to keep me happy at the moment. He didn't generally concern himself too much about whether he really be able to keep his promises exactly. He just said what he needed to say and then tried his best to do what he said he would do. That's exactly what they do. They say what they need to say to get you to shut up. Well, his best got less with the addition of each wife and child. I turned down the wick of coal oil lamp, leaving a soft light barely lighting the room. All the kids were asleep, so I made myself comfortable on the sofa to wait for Verlin's return. I heard a car stop outside and got up to open the door. I glanced at the clock. It was 12:30. Though it was late, I felt relieved by Verlin's arrival. I opened the door with eager anticipation, but my heart fell when I saw it was only Charlotte. He ain't coming. He's not coming. Hi. Here's a note from Verlin, she said, handing it to me. He's sorry he couldn't make it. Good night. So he could give Charlotte this letter and he couldn't come. I just don't get this. I closed the door, trembling with rage. Then I turned up the lamp and tore open the envelope. Dear Irene, I'm too busy getting the trees. I think it'll be at least another week. Just do the best you can. My prayers are with you for the delivery. So I was right in assuming that he wasn't going to be there. Encloses $100. I love you dearly, Verlin. Do whatever you got to do, girl. If you got to go somewhere else to get another $100 or however much you're going to need for your surgery to tie your tubes, go do it. My pitiful cries of anguish woke Donna. She tried to calm me as I repeated my conviction over and over and over again out loud. He doesn't love me. He doesn't love me. He does not love me. After all the wives I've given him, the children I've borne, he has no time for me. I paid no attention to Donna's words of comfort. That man has let me down over and over and over again. I cried. A pall of grief and indescribable despair enveloped me. My whole married life seemed to hang before me, and all at once I saw how much I gave up in order to indulge Verlin's grand illusions. I loved, served, obeyed, complied, gave and gave and gave some more, always denying myself. Now nothing was left of me but physical and emotional wreckage. And in exchange for all of this, Verlin was too busy getting trees. My faith in Verlin was exhausted. I'm just hearing the parallels with her and with Christine. Christine gave a lot of herself and got tired of giving and sacrificed a lot and got nothing in return. And she got tired. And this is Irene sounding like she's tired, but we all know she's not done yet. It's never that easy. Donna and Lucy accompanied me to the Good Shepherd Clinic in San Quentin the next day. Gina and Claudia, friends from our church who were also expecting, followed close behind us. Claudia was going to have her 5th cesarean. Goodness gracious. She's had 5 cesareans. She's got her stomach cut open 5 times. And the way that they do these things back to back, poor girl. I called her in California to make sure she came before the doctor went on vacation. Having her baby in Mexico would be more within their financial means. Afraid I chicken out, I insisted the doctors perform my operation first. Lucy thought I went to the hospital to induce labor. When they wheeled me down the hall to the operation room, Donna walked beside me. She whispered words of encouragement and then kissed me just before they pushed me through the swinging doors. Then she said to Lucy, start praying. Mom's having the baby cesarean and getting her tubes tied. 45 minutes later, the nurse carried an 8.5-pound baby boy wrapped in a thick receiving blanket out into the chilly hall and presented him to Donna. She and Lucy cuddled the new arrival, waiting for me to come out of anesthesia. Meanwhile, in my druggy dream, I was clinging by my bare hands to a high, protruding cliff. My fingers were bleeding and I felt myself slipping. I tried desperately to hold on the jagged piece. I clung tighter, but felt myself still slipping. I can't hang on anymore, I screamed, plunging into oblivion. Then I woke up. I should have been happy to wake up and see the darling little boy I born, but I felt like I awoke to the same old nightmare. I had to face the world again alone. 4 days, every muscle in my back and shoulders twitched. Insomnia made things worse. The constant depression was snuffing out my life. Verlin came to the clinic 3 days after the operation to see me. He'd asked if we could have some privacy. Lucy and the nurse softly closed the door, leaving the two of us alone. Who knows that you tied your tubes, he began. Just Lucy, Donna, Claudia, and Jean. Don't tell another soul what you've done. Think how it will make me look being president of the church. If we permitted this to go on, every woman in our group would do it. We must be examples before them and the Lord. He shook his head in disgust. You sure goofed up your life. You made it so we can never have a sexual relationship again. He's punishing her. That's him punishing her. She just had a major surgery, and here you are 3 days after, raising her blood pressure, which can affect her, which could cause her to bleed out, which can mess up her body. She has stitches in her womb, and you're over here letting her know that not only has she made you upset because she did this, even though you gave her the money to do it, and also that you're never going to sleep with her again. What you've done is the biggest form of birth control I know of. You shouldn't have done it. Each sentence he spoke drove me deeper into the abyss of despair. He continued, I'll be back on Saturday to take you home. The doctor said you'd be well enough then. I hope that my taking you home when you get out of here will make up for the fact that I wasn't here for Lothair's birth. What kind of name? I don't know if I said it right. Lothair. That's how you spell it. What? No, you taking me home doesn't make up for anything. And you fussing me out right now doesn't help. Circumstances made it impossible for Verlin to keep his promise again. Of course, Jean and Claudia took me home, stopping off at Charlotte's house to retrieve my newborn son. I thanked her for caring for him during the time I stayed in the clinic. Jean carried my baby into my house as I slowly followed them inside. He wished me the best. Then he left with Claudia and her new baby for the States. When I entered the house, things had never seemed so bad before. I noted the cold cement floors, bare walls, sagging drapes, and seaside dampness of the January cold. I wondered how my infant son would survive in this unheated house. Donna helped me into my bedroom with my brood of lonely, neglected children, and they came scampering to get into bed beside me. I wanted to gather them into my arms and love them one and all, but instead I pushed them aside for fear they hit my stomach and hurt my incision. I felt so overwhelmed. How had I washed, cooked, and worked so steadily and hard for so many children? All my strength seemed to have drained out of me. I knew I couldn't cope with it anymore. I looked in the mirror, but the eyes that I saw, they weren't mine. The eyes in the mirror were empty and hopeless. Eyes are the windows of your soul, a little voice taunted me while I stared. What soul? Said the face in the mirror. Once there, in my deepest despair, I settled in for a long stay. I cried night and day for 6 weeks. I constantly woke Donna up at night, begging her to talk to me. My hope for a better earthly life was lost. I also forfeited my godhood by having my tubes tied. Moreover, my secret was out. Everyone seemed to know. Alma, who was the bishop of the Church of the Firstborn, counseled me to go back to the hospital and reverse my operation. How could you do something so drastic, he demanded. Because she was at risk of death, and y'all rather have that happen and then lie and say it was God's will than for her to rectify the situation when she's being given an opportunity to do it. There are spirits who are begging to come to earth to obtain their bodies. There may still be a few you've covenanted to bring forth, and now you deny them a chance to work out their salvation. This girl is depressed. She's hanging on by a thread, and y'all are coming over to her to talk to her and lecture her about her stuff. But what should have been done was they shouldn't have told anybody what the surgery was for. I know that Donna meant well, and I know that she thought she was just talking to certain people, but they shouldn't have said anything to anyone because these people love to run their mouths. Everybody does. I wouldn't be sharing all that information because it's really nobody's business. Because of his position, I didn't dare refute him, but to myself, I thought, my hell, wasn't 13 kids enough? Another well-meaning friend asked me if it wasn't feasible that I sinned against the Holy Ghost and thereby committed an unpardonable sin. All the interrogation sent me into an even more deep tailspin. My mind whipped me, screamingly, accusingly, that I turned against the very God I tried so hard to serve. No one could have been more disappointed in me than I was in myself. They're acting like she sat here and she took the life of someone. She tied her frickin' tubes. No one could have been more disappointed in me than I was in myself. I hadn't followed Verlin's counsel. I tied up the fountain of life. I'd sinned against the Holy Ghost. And if God wasn't mad enough at me, Verlin made up for it. At not quite 35, I was alone, saddled with 13 kids, and certain I could never enjoy sexual intimacy ever again. I couldn't even love God. Where was he? The only fate I could foresee when I arrived at the pearly gates was a wrathful God thrusting me into the burning pits of hell forever. If God intended to raise his hand to destroy me, then I beat him to it. My only recourse seemed to be suicide. Instantly, I cried to the Lord for forgiveness, but how could he forgive me for the unpardonable sin which I'd been accused of? They're so full of crap, yo. I don't like this. I'm getting mad. I was emotionally incapable of caring for my children. Once more, Donna had to take on the full responsibility. Reluctantly, I confided in Verlin that I wanted to kill myself. Girl, why would you tell Verlin that when he's proven to you time and time again that everything for him is a religious matter? He's not going to think that you need help. He's not going to think that you need counsel. He's not going to think that you need additional help with the kids and some time to grieve and to do whatever it is that you have to do. Instead, more than likely, he's going to put this on you. And he's going to say it's your fault and you're the one who did wrong and all this other stuff. But let's see. Where am I? Y'all, I lost my spot. They're not quite, y'all, I don't know where I'm at. If I reread something, forgive me, but I don't know where I am. And I was trying to look for that sentence, but, I don't know. Okay. I still don't know. Instantly, I cried to the Lord for forgiveness. But how could he forgive me for the unpardonable sin of which I've been accused of? I was emotionally incapable of caring for my children. Once more, Donna had to take on the full responsibility. Reluctantly, there I am. I confided in Verlin that I wanted to kill myself. He was shocked. He immediately informed me that I was possessed by evil spirits. So he instructed me to sit quietly on the bed. Then he solemnly placed his hands on my head, and by the holy priesthood he held, and in the name of Jesus, he cast the evil spirits out. But the demons didn't bulge because it's not a demon. I hate when people do this crap. I felt worse than ever because I knew something Verlin didn't. I wasn't possessed. I was disillusioned, brokenhearted, rejected, and unloved. No exorcism would cast that out of me. Now my husband also thought me to be full of the devil. There was no end to the agony. She shouldn't have told him anything because Verlin don't care about her. My sister wife Beverly was out of town visiting her parents in Colonial LeBaron at the time. Her vacant house was just a block away. I locked myself in, determined to hide from my distressed children. I prayed for answers, but none came as I spiraled into greater and greater hopelessness. Sounds like not only is she dealing with postpartum depression, but she's dealing with depression, period, and this religion that's keeping her bound and making her feel like she's evil for her natural feelings. Then insomnia stole the few remaining shreds of peace I knew. I fought my longings for death, but I also was losing. I never drunk liquor before, but I sent Donna to my friend Yolanda's in Guerrero for alcohol. Even in my jarred state of mind, I found momentary solace in Proverbs 31, 6-7. Give strong drink unto him that is ready to perish, and wine unto those that be heavy of heart. Let him drink and forget his poverty, and remember his misery no more. Every verse pertained to me. Emotionally, I was perishing. My mind was filled with anguish. Oh, how I wanted to forget my poverty. My life was full of misery. So with the Bible's permission, I eased myself into drunken oblivion. It's not what it means, but okay. For over a month, Donna supplied the liquor, sneaking it over to me so no one would discover my whereabouts, especially my children. I couldn't get off my emotional seesaw. Wow, so over a month she's not being a mom. Where's her newborn? What is going on? First would come the urges to commit suicide. Then I drank to knock myself out and keep me from doing it. Then I awoke and I wanted to do all the more. And on and on and on. I hated the stranger in my mirror for constantly tempting me to kill myself. I couldn't go into the kitchen at all. Each time I tried, she'd tell me to grab a butcher knife. I'd have to run out immediately before the woman took my life. Verlin returned to find me plastered. Satan has really taken you downhill, he pronounced. I cried out in the best way I could think of. I can't survive another minute. Suicide is the only way out. I'm in too much mental pain to live another agonizing day. You ought to count your blessings, he said. You have the gospel and you should find joy in it, and you should forget about everything except raising your kids. I want you to go back to your own house and ask God to give you strength to do your duty. All I need is your love, I answered. How can I possibly go on without it? Please, I begged. Don't go away and leave me like this. He turned to go. I promise I kill myself. You'll be sorry, I threatened. I needed an anchor for my soul. I was willing to settle for the love of this man. What I couldn't take was his disdain. Clinging to him, I sobbed, help me, Verlin. I can't go on alone. He did not pull away, though I could see it was clearly beneath him to hold such a weak and sinful woman. Please get a hold of yourself, Irene. If you don't, your children will never want to live the gospel. This is all about the kids. He wants to make sure that his daughters go through the same pain that their mom is going through. If they refuse because of your actions, God will surely hold you accountable. In complete frustration, I screamed out, I hate you. You've ruined my life. When I'm dead, you'll be sorry. I cried such pitiful sobs that he decided he better spend the night with me. He walked me back to my own home, preaching all the way, trying to console me in his own fashion. Before getting into my bed, he placed his loaded pistol on the dresser. Since Joel's death, it became Verlin's custom to have one handy for his protection. He patted me wearily. Well, good night, Irene. And he rolled over. I got no touch, no warm, comforting embrace, and certainly no sex. So this man couldn't even hold his wife as she cried and she was in pain. And he's supposed to love her. Okay. I would have been grateful if he just talked to me, tried to understand me. His steady breathing from under the sheets was my only consolation. While on my drinking binge, I lost all sense of time. I didn't know the date or the month. My heart was in a vice, being tightened a little more every day, causing excruciating mental pain. I couldn't take another minute of it, thinking my brain was literally going to rupture. Images flossed across my warped mind, revealing the horrific crimes I committed, even some I hadn't. They deceived me into thinking I killed my first baby. They showed me that at times I hated my sister wives. What's more, Verlin was right. I had been lustful. I was oversexed. I committed adultery with my own husband. Trapped in this torturous mental maze, I saw that Verlin knew best. I did deserve punishment. It was this state of mind that I made a dreadful decision. Quietly in the dark, I eased myself out of bed, feeling for Verlin's pistol. I raised it with resolve, knowing that if I hurried, I'd be able to do it. Determined, yet frozen with fear, I held it in my trembling hands. I didn't want to do it, but I knew I had to. There was nothing left in life for me. Y'all, this is deep. Sorry, I keep bouncing, y'all. This is deep and this is rough, and this shows the state of mind that she was in. If I don't say it any other time, which I feel like I'm going to say it more, especially with what's going to be coming up in Sister Wives, it is so important to make sure that you're taking care of your mental health, because it affects you more than you realize. So does stress. Like, people think that stress is just this thing, but I know with my mom and her heart attack, they said that one of the things what that affected her heart wasn't just genetics, but it was stress. It was lack of sleep. It was lack of oxygen, because we didn't even know that she had sleep apnea. Like, there was so many things that are associated with your mental health that you don't even think of. And here she is, and mentally she's been struggling for a long time, and this is her desperation. But let's continue. I saw flashes of my casket, with Verling weeping at its side. In my crazed mind, I was gleeful, with a sick satisfaction. I thought if I could not have him, then he wasn't going to have me. I would finally get even with him. I lost him somewhere in life's shuffle. Now he could just lose me. He deserved it. I held the gun to my pulsating temple, placing my finger on the trigger, ready to administer the punishment both Verlin and I deserved. Then, gathering courage, I silently prayed, God, receive my unworthy soul. In that instant, 2-month-old Lothair cried out to be fed. For the first time in months, I felt someone needed me. Still shaking, I cautiously placed the pistol back in its place as Verlin stirred a bit in response to the baby's cries, but then went right on sleeping. Realizing my baby needed me and yearning to raise my children, I vowed to fight through my agonizing nightmare, not for religion, not for man, but for the love of my children. Whew, that was a heavy chapter. I'm going to have to put the little warning up there. All right, y'all. Chapter 33. I now wanted to get better, but I had no idea how to accomplish it. On my own, I couldn't quite get the voices within. I couldn't quiet the voices within. Once again, I left my 11 neglected children with Donna. My oldest son, Andre, was now 15 and was already out of the house, working in San Diego as a drawwife finisher to help support the family. At 15, he was supporting his family. I decided I would go there too. I knew Verlin would be disappointed with me because I was once again taking a significant step without his permission, but I was too distraught to care. Yeah, she's depressed and she's struggling and she's in this place and he doesn't really come around to see her anyways. And she's freezing and all this other stuff. Why not go somewhere else where she could be more comfortable to help her begin to start with her mental healing? I caught a bus in Los Molinos, intending to hide for a few days at my friend Judy's, a church member who moved to San Diego to tap into the California welfare system. I didn't want anyone else to see me in such an unstable condition. At Judy's, I spent the night praying, begging God to grant me a little sleep so I could rest from my minds frantic, whipping back and forth from one self-accusation to another, from this lie or half-truth to the next. The mental suffering was excruciating. I longed for somebody, anybody, to help me in this hellish maze. At 7 a.m., I heard Judy in the bathroom. My heart started beating so fast it literally felt like it could race out of my chest. The thumping pain took my breath away. Judy heard my frantic cries and rushed me downtown to University Hospital. After examining me, the doctor informed Judy and me that I was having panic attacks. A psychiatrist came in and asked me probing questions. Are you married? Where's your husband? Do you have children? I kept silent. No matter how much agony I was in, I couldn't put Verlin in danger by revealing that information. She never puts herself first. This is sad. As the psychiatrist continued to press me for responses, all the old tapes played faithfully. No matter what, never ever betray the brethren, they told me. The concerned psychiatrist then gave me a list of words, instructing me to check the ones that applied to me. I marked them off one at a time. Despair, fear, hopelessness, tired. The doctor scanned the paper after I finished. He asked me if I knew what day of the week it was. No, I replied. What month is it? He asked. How dare he expect me to know these answers? I was just trying to survive from one moment to the next. I was more of a zombie than a person. Only after I signed a bunch of papers did they permit me to leave the hospital. I agreed to attend a class in the mental health wing for 1 hour per day, Monday through Friday, whatever at the time. The pronounced and painful beating in my chest interested me as much more. I prayed that God would give me a heart attack and let me die, that I wouldn't have to depend on sleep for relief. Y'all, panic attacks are no joke. Excuse me. I used to get them frequently when I was going through a lot of stuff with my ex. And when I say they are no joke, they are no joke. And it really does at times feel like you're going to have a heart attack. Without pausing to consider it, he said, Irene will not go to any class or see a psychiatrist. Then he turned to face me. You're going to disrupt my whole family. In the first place, they will put you on welfare. They will make you bring your kids out into this wicked world. I may end up in prison when they discover I have all these wives. Look at you. You look terrible. Get a hold of yourself before you end up completely crazy like my sister Lucinda. So she could be getting help. And rather than doing that, you want to criticize her more and beat her down more than she's already beat down. Y'all, this white from my chapstick is driving me nuts. Good grief. You want to beat her down even more than you already have when she's just trying to get help. It always comes back to how everything is going to affect him. He does not care about his wife. And his sister probably could have got help too. The one that was in the walls with no ceiling and all that stuff, acting crazy, so they said, she probably needed help too. With that, my last hope for help vanished. Before he left, Verlin demanded I return home to Los Molinos and get back to raising the children. I had hoped this man loved me enough to care just a little bit about my desperation, but his refusal to let me accept the help offered made me realize I had to take matters entirely into my own hands. As I mulled it over, the idea formed in my fragmented mind to seek out my sister Becky, who now lived in Las Vegas. She and her husband were monogamous. At her first hello, I cried out, Becky, help me. I'm losing my mind. Andre, who lived near Judy, was concerned enough about my condition to pay for my bus fare to Vegas. So her son cares more about her than her husband. Thank goodness she had certain people around her. When Becky saw the shape I was in, she tried to persuade me to see a doctor. I explained I couldn't seek that kind of help. I had enough burdens and guilt. I didn't want to add Verlin's being sent to jail or his family being destroyed to the long list of things I already had to answer for. If I did, God might send me to a worse hell than I was already experiencing. So I just stayed at Becky's house and tried to sort out my thoughts, hoping to remember why I was in this quandary in the first place. I knew that in the late 19th century, Brigham Young taught the principle of blood atonement. There are sins that men commit for which they cannot receive forgiveness. By the blood of Christ, so they would be perfectly willing to have their blood spilt upon the ground, that the smoke thereof might ascend to heaven as if an offering for their sins, and the smoking incense would atone for their sins. Goodness gracious, this is... These sinners would beg of their brethren to shed their blood. Journal of Discourses, Volume 451, Discreet News, 1856, page 235. That's where she got that from. In our group, Brigham Young was always quoted as the ultimate authority. I knew I didn't deserve to continue living, but I couldn't remember which of my sins made me such a stench. Right. All of this because she decided to tie her tubes is why he's been so cruel to her. Oh yes, I did tie my tubes, depriving several unborn spirits of their opportunities to obtain bodies to come to earth and work out their salvation. Here's my thing. If the spirit is meant to come to this earth in this belief system, then wouldn't it come by another way? Why does it only have to be through her? Why couldn't it be through another one of Verlin's offspring? Why couldn't it be through a whole nother person, period? I don't get it. And now I needed to atone for my despicable crime. A price had to be paid, and Jesus hadn't paid it. Not for such a weighty sin as this. I made the decision to submit myself to the church's blood atonement ritual in order to rid myself of guilt for this sin. Verlin had just left for Nicaragua to prepare for the Church of the Firstborn. Probable relocation there. I hoped to get my problem taken care of before he returned. I did not want him interfering. A young church member allowed me to ride with him from Las Vegas, Colonial LeBaron. In the foggy prison of my mind, I grieved for myself as we traveled those 15 sleepless hours. I would be a martyr. It was my only hope. When we arrived at Colonial LeBaron, my young friend informed me it was Saturday night. I felt this confirmed that I was acting in accordance with God's divine plan. Most of the men were only home on weekends. The next day, they would leave the colony and their wives to return to their jobs in the States. If I was going to find any brethren in the colony, it would have to be tonight, late as it was. By the urgency in my voice and appearance, I was able to persuade two brothers, Bruce and Earl, to give me an audience. I respected their positions just under Verlin's in the church. I swore both men to secrecy. Then I confessed my crimes before them. Both were shocked, especially when I went on to say I knew Verlin loved me too much to see me carry out my plans. I begged them to do me the favor of slitting my throat so that I might thereby redeem myself from my damnable deeds. Ooh. Seeing both my agony and sincerity, Bruce interrupted. Irene, blood atonement isn't being practiced by our group. We wouldn't think of doing that to you. It makes me angry that Verlin isn't here when you're suffering so much emotionally. Does he know how you feel? He knows, I answered. When I revealed to him that I wanted to commit suicide, he said that he recognized the demons that possessed me. They should have fled when he laid his hands on my head and rebuked them in the name of God. Earl realized I'd gone over the edge. He assured me he'd be responsible for me and promised Bruce he would stay and counsel me. I'd known Earl for 12 years. He moved to Colonial LeBaron after being convinced by Joel that the United States was about to be annihilated, that fire and brimstone would soon wipe it off the map, and that our group alone would be spared by fleeing to Mexico for safety. I thought I knew Earl well. I respected his priesthood, but the solution he offered to my problem seemed very foreign to me. This supposed man of God confessed that he'd been trained in the latest techniques of hypnosis. I cringed. So therapy is wrong, but it's okay to get hypnotized. Huh? How could a man possessing such godly power suggest I resort to using the devil's tactics? But Earl promised me that through hypnosis he could remove all my fears and imagined sins. Only because I had nowhere else to turn and I knew I would perish if I wasn't rescued immediately, I gave in to his suggestion. I confessed to Earl my fear that hypnosis was from the devil. I asked him if he thought I'd lose my salvation if I let him do it. He said, "Trust me. I promise that you'll be okay. Now sit in the recliner and relax. I'll count to 10, and when I get there, just quietly listen to my voice and close your eyes." I tried to calm my restless mind, hoping that the devil wouldn't completely overtake me. I focused on the sound of his monotone voice. 1, you're getting sleepy. 2, you're getting a little more drowsy. 3, be calm. Just relax. 4, that's it. Let your body relax more. By the time Earl counted to 10, I was completely under. Then he told me that tying my tube spared my life and would help me take better care of the 13 children I had. Exactly. He told me I would sleep like a baby that night. He assured me I was not an unredeemed sinner. "You will not grieve over your operation anymore," he said. "You are a beautiful woman. You need to listen to yourself." Then he paused. "I do not need to put you under next time. When you see me raise my index finger, you'll automatically go under." Then Earl started counting from 10 back to 1. "Now open your eyes," he instructed. When I opened them, I felt as though I had been asleep for hours. I was surprised to see my dear friend, Renita, one of Earl's first wives, in the room. She smiled. "I hope you don't object to me having come in without your permission," she said. I had opened my mouth to answer her when Earl held up his index finger. I immediately flopped into the chair, soft like a rag doll. I was under again. He then repeated the previous injunctions, making sure I understood I was a good person and had done nothing wrong. His voice soothed my heart. I don't know whether this is hypnosis or not. I've never been hypnotized. But he is speaking life into her. He is telling her something that she needed to hear from her husband, that she never heard from her husband. And it matters all the more because this is a man telling her this. This is someone that she holds into a high regard. So maybe this may help. We'll see. Counting from 10 to 1 again, he gently ordered me to open my eyes. "You should feel better now that I've taken you under twice," he said. "Come back tomorrow so we can reinforce your mind again." He smiled as I rose to my feet. "I'm available 24 hours a day, Irene. Come anytime you need me." This man is showing her more care than her own husband. That night, I passed out from sheer exhaustion and slept for 13 hours without a hint of insomnia. In each subsequent session with Earl, my twisted mind unraveled some. My new friend helped ease many of my deepest fears. Most of all, he opened my mind to a promising new sense of myself, a self that not only wanted life and love, but who wasn't evil for wanting it. I'd come to the colony seeking death, but there of all places, I rediscovered the will to live. And as the rigid religious constructs in my mind began to crumble, I felt myself emerging from the darkness. Before me was something I hadn't seen in a long time. I saw hope. And that is the end of that chapter reading. Y'all, Irene is going through so much. And I saw some of y'all put in the comment section that she has some other books. I may try to look into seeing what they're about. I know I saw one saying that it's more about the doctrine, but I gotta go look because that was a long time ago when I saw that, way before I even was suggested to read this book by one of you guys. I feel like it says a lot when your own husband can't even take the time to get off his own soapbox and realize what your wife is going through. I think that Irene has suffered a great deal, and I don't want to say that whether she suffered more or less than the other wives around her, but it's clear that she's been through a lot and that she's just been a placeholder. It seems like Verlin tolerates her. And a lot of what I see with him and how he treats her is how we've seen Kody treat some of his wives. This is a very good book. Like, I know my rating for this. We'll see what happens because we still got some pages left. But I know my rating for this so far is going to be high because if I'm being honest, I think so far out of all the polygamy books, this is the one that I've enjoyed the most. But you tell me what you all think. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Until next time.